I'm Sandy Reed, and I'm the curator of the International Skydiving Museum and Hall of Fame. Almost 50 years ago, the idea for a museum was created by several people within the sport that wanted to preserve the history of skydiving. The two most important people was Bill Otley, W-H-O, William H. Otley, and Lowell Bachman of Peregear. And over the years, they started the process of acquiring equipment from various places, and most of it was sent to Peregear in Chicago, which is where they had a lot of space at that point. Over the years, the structure of the museum has changed and it's moved around, but in the last several years, there's been more momentum. We've been gathering more money out there, and also both Bill Otley and Lowell Bachman left substantial amounts of money in their estates when they passed away several years ago. So what we have is there's now a new structure with the museum. We have a board of trustees and we have various committees, and it's become very formalized. And we've gotten into a major fundraising campaign in the last couple of years. And so as we progressed, we said what we need to have this collection. We've been accumulating all this equipment for years, but now it's time that we find out what we have, because it will become the foundation of a museum.
Well, I think this Operation Packrat week is really amazing, and even for myself, I'm really glad that I'm here. There's so many old media type and camera helmets and things that nobody else, even in this whole room, really knows what they are. So it's been very, very nice feeling that I need to be here. So that's a good thing, to take the time to come here and know that I've made a difference.
This is President Bush helmet and jumpsuit from his accelerated freefall jump made at Yuma, Arizona in 1997. And inside we find a photograph. The donor is Pat Moorhead, donated in 2010. George Bush, and we have the helmet that George Bush jumped, a jumpsuit which he wore, Action Air parachutes manufactured. Jumpsuit has grips on the upper and grips on the legs for the accelerated parachute individuals. Also inside, we have two altimeters, a wrist-mounted Altimaster 2 and a second hand-mounted altimeter.
This is a photograph that I took in 1997 on his first skydive, a moment where the two instructors had their thumbs up, he had his thumbs up, and it was such a popular photo that it got published in Life magazine as a 2-page centerfold. I got it published all over the world in books, like an extreme sports book, which really made the president at age 72 quite happy to be the centerfold in an extreme sports book. The photo was really, really well received by the president, and he actually had over 400 copies ordered. It was a gift that he would give to people, autographed copies of the photo that I took, and he told me he gave one to the Pope and he gave one to the Crown Prince of Brunei.
Garth Taggart was a stuntman, and he jumped this suit in the movie Gypsy Moths. Yeah. And when he died, several years later, his widow he lived in the Midwest somewhere, his widow brought things. I don't remember what else was in there, but this was the important one, and there was a movie poster, which you're yet to find, and donated it to the museum.
What we have here is Oscar in his coffin. So, okay, are we ready? Ah, there we go. So as you can see, this has an old hawser from like shipping that they had years ago, the big ropes they would have to tie ships up with, and they would tie it and then build a shape to it. And it's got the torso, it's got some webbing. This is all cotton, by the way, from the 1930s. So that's why it's very fragile at the time. And then it has the two places where they would tie the parachute onto it, and it's got some legs, because if you have leg straps on the parachute, they have to hold it onto the body. And they'd throw it out of the aircraft, and it would open and go from there. A parachute made by a guy named Domina Gelbert, and it's called a multi-cell square canopy. Now, it's not the square canopy that most people would know. It's actually a single surface. It looks like a big round with square corners on it. That's the best we can come up with. None of us have seen this before, so we're hanging it up to time to take a look at it. And it says, the first square canopy in the USA, autographed by Dom Gelbert after live jumping in December of 1966, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, by Lou Sanborn, D1. This boy has been around a long time. What we have is we've been hanging this thing up to take a look at it, and we can't figure out what's front, what's back, what's side, what's inside out, what's outside. And you'll notice that it has a lot of holes. Now, those are intentional because they've cut the hole and they sew around it on the thing. So.
We're starting to get camera equipment from legendary cameramen. The one in the middle is D1, Lou Sanborn, and he's got a Super 8 movie camera. And then over here, this is Chip Morey. He was famous for shooting stills. And what's unique about his setup is that instead of using a ring sight like most of us use, this is a sports finder. And it's kind of like the modern video camera where you can look at a viewfinder without having an eyepiece. He could literally look through this sports finder, which is a big glass rectangle, and see exactly what the lens saw. So framing was perfect. Lou Sanborn, I would think, is 60s, maybe into 70s. Into these are probably 70s into 80s. We would shoot like this or a ring sight. And the sports finder affects your depth perception, because one eye is looking through a lens and one eye is not. So I didn't like it, but some guys liked it. Chip Murray liked that.
My friend Bill Winger is modeling an NB8 emergency crew parachute made by Switlick, made in 1962. You'll notice that it's white in color. The harness hardware is chrome. It would be used by a nuclear delivery crew. In the event that they delivered a nuclear device, that it went off, and they had to get out of the airplane. The thinking was that white would not absorb radiation and that it would be a survivable event for them. So, very unique piece of equipment, obviously a Cold War item, and it's in wonderful condition.
Okay, what we have here is a World War I era German Heineke, I think is how they pronounce it. It's kind of, maybe it's related to Heineken beer, I don't know. But it's a Heineke balloon parachute. During the First World War, they used observation balloons on both sides of the lines, the Germans and the Allies, and they'd run these things up on a cable or a rope to 500 feet or so with observers in it. They would use binoculars, telescopes to observe the enemy on the other side. Well, at that point, there was also great sport for the air crews and the fighters, the early biplanes, to shoot these things down, because some of them had hydrogen in there, which was flammable. And they come in, they'd shoot the balloon envelope, the thing would explode, and they had these hooked up to the balloon, and the observer that was on board would jump out, and then the parachute would open and hopefully save their life. Now, the only other thing is, depending on the altitude and where the winds were, when this balloon was coming down, hopefully the parachute wasn't underneath it, so it was kind of drifting away. We do have a label on it. It's in German. It's pretty worn. We can't tell too much of it, but this thing is in amazing condition. So now what we have, this appears to be early silk. We're going to leave it intact so we can put it back together at this, but we're going to open this up and show you some of the unique
shroud lines
features that they have, how they built this. Now remember, this is in 1917, and they didn't have nylon at that time. They had cotton, they had rope and silk and leather. They used a lot of leather. A lot of the harnesses were leather at the time, made from the whole horse industry. Yeah, well, the sewing machines are out there, so. Okay, what we have here is a very unique and historic piece of equipment. It is the very first Ram Air Reserve parachute that was created by Paraflight back in the late 1970s. This is from 1977, and it's serial number 0001. And like a lot of things, when you have like guns where they have matching serial numbers and everything, we have matching serial numbers not only on the canopy, but we also have on here the reserve deployment bag is number 1. And the pilot chute, which is number 1 that we have on it. So they're all as part of the system. This is the pioneer of everything that went after that. Everybody's had it. It's a 5-cell canopy. When they first came out with it, people said, oh, it's too small, it lands too hard. If you jump around or you jump the square, you're going to recognize the fact that the superiority of the square technology. And so this is kind of like the granddaddy of everything that we're jumping today. This artifact right here is the very first prototype Paracommander that was ever built, flown, and eventually turned into the Paracommander. It was designed by Ed Vickery. His job at Pioneer was to develop this, and I've got pictures that he has of big giant parasails. They made them for recovery systems for spacecraft and things like that. So it looks like a giant Paracommander is exactly what it looks like. So anyway, one day they're out testing these things, and they're standing there with the president of Pioneer, and they were talking, and somehow the comment came up about, well, could you jump this thing? And so Ed was talking about it, and the president said, well, do you think you could jump it? And he says, yes, sir, I think we can do that. He says, go ahead and try it. So he, of course, jumped right onto the project and developed what now became this canopy right here. So the key thing is that this parachute changed the face of skydiving worldwide.
Here what we got is some equipment donated. We have equipment from Nancy Black. She was of the 1971 U.S. parachute team, Style and Accuracy. She donated her jumpsuit, her container system, U.S. team Paracommander Mark I, and actually have some of her medals.
But it's really important to get those items, whether it's a parachute equipment or Lou Sanborn's helmet or really, really nice media like ABC Wild World of Sports covering the Nationals. all of those little gems, to get those out, make sure they're being protected. And with what we're doing with the media, we're putting the really special items in a separate place. So even if there was bad weather like a hurricane coming here, it'd be possible to save those. So I think it was invaluable to come here and take the incredible volume that we have, find out what is absolutely priceless, so we know what we have, know what we need now as far as more items that'll help let people know what we're looking for and to protect what we have. Well, I'm just blown away with the support that SunPath has given the museum, not just at this event, but ever since the very beginning. But the facilities we have, the room that we have to do this in is amazing. And it seems like anything that the museum needs, Pat Thomas and SunPath, they make it happen. This has been a pleasurable couple week. They make sure that we're fed well. It's very comfortable here. They're taking good care of all of the people that are volunteering. But the enormous facilities, the space for storing this, all of the shelving, all of this stuff is absolutely perfect. It's what we need, and SunPath has provided it all.
I couldn't believe we actually saw the bat wings, or the new movie was called The Cape, that Burt Lancaster did in Gypsy Moth. And that was so cool. I mean, just to see it, the real thing right here in front of me. And it was sewed, the reinforcements, these wings, was sewed, for me was interesting, with a harness machine. So it was a lot of work doing it, and it was pretty neat. The tools and the things, the way we do things, you can see in these rigs. You can see how things have changed, and how like the idea of using bar tacks instead of zigzags and things of that sort. You can see the progression as you look at these rigs. And to me, that's kind of interesting, and how they sewed it, and how they did it, and how we do things now. It's really quite eye-opening. And the museum's going to show all that, and we can't wait for people to see the museum, how it comes out.
So that's kind of the sum of what we're doing with this Operation Packrat, but it's part of the basis that we need for the museum itself. Without the archives, it's no museum. It's nothing more than just a dog and pony show or circus or whatever we want to do.